What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Studios. First off, thank you so much for checking out today's content. I'll make this extremely fast, but I need to plug our sponsors that make this show possible. Our first sponsor is PerfectStormNow.com, by far the most effective and affordable real estate agent website and database platform in the industry. It is the system I use to sell 50 plus homes every single month. Check it out at www.perfectstormnow.com. Our second sponsor is my personal 90-day mastery bootcamp, which is, again, my personal real estate agent mentorship program where we spend 90 days together, 12 live sessions. You get daily access to me inside the program. You guys, we go so extremely in-depth. There's nothing that's incomplete about this program. You're going to get all the tools that you need to go out there and crush it inside your real estate business. Make sure to go check us out, www.90daymastery.com. You can watch in-depth videos of exactly what's covered to see if the program is for you. See all the raving testimonials we have from all of the amazing agents and clients that went through the program. So make sure to check us out, www.90daymastery.com. All right, you guys, let's jump on into today's content. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD mode interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses. They're out there dominating their spaces. They're people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves and their families. And we got an amazing guest on the show today, guys. This is a guy that had a lot of success in real estate and continues to have success in real estate. He's a top consultant and trainer for one of the most successful real estate companies in the country. He's a best-selling author of Re-Succeed. And really, if you boil down, an expert in helping others find or redefine their purpose, which I'm really stoked about, because I speak to so many realtors and other entrepreneurs in other fields that, like, in the beginning, we're so driven because we have to be to just to pay the rent, right? And then you get to a point where, man, things are going good, and good enough kind of becomes the worst enemy to greatness, and then you can lose that drive along the way. So really stoked to dive into the interview, man. But before we get into what you're doing today, I'm really just intrigued on the journey that led you here. I know you were a top producing realtor and that kind of transition to what you're doing today, but how did all this transpire in the first place?
First of all, Joshua, thanks for having me on. I love talking to my peeps when it comes to real estate. I know I'm talking with a bunch of folks that are, to be honest with you, pretty massively ADD. So we're all just, we're bouncing around from thing to thing. We need a nugget or two, to push us to the next level. And really, I love our industry, but there's so much amazing opportunity that's unfound while we chase after the transaction, if you will. And I'm not saying give up on the next transaction. I'm just saying that I learned so much along my journey in being a top producer. So it's great to be working with you today and just, be with a group of people, like-minded folks, especially entrepreneur folks out there that are looking to kind of get out of their own way, if you will. So my journey, to be honest with you, I'll take you back to Christmas 2006. One of the very best years of real estate for me. I'd made a goal of selling 120 houses that year, just with an assistant. I like to keep it simple. And I actually did sell 120 houses, and I'm up here in the Seattle area. Price points are pretty high. I ended up making right around $1.2 million that year net. After everything was paid, and I didn't work much at all. I kind of was living the dream, kind of the 22 to 25 hour a week deal, cargo shorts and a t-shirt most days. And I just kind of told my clients, deal with it. You're dealing with the best, kind of, deal with it type program. Had a new construction site that brought in about 50 deals. So I won't lie. I mean, I did have some autopilot site agents that worked for me, and pretty much, you listed it, it sold. You could even skip, the flyer back in '06. I mean, it was, if you waited long enough, you could skip the sign for that matter. Things just were flying off the shelf. But Christmas Eve 2006, I was at our lake house. We have about an hour north. I bought this little place on a lake to be able to I guess, pseudo getaway. I was 1 hour away from getting back to work if I needed to, but the cell reception was not so great there, and we didn't have a TV, and I had at that point 2 boys, and my wife and I would go up there on weekends and just try to get away. Well, we were up there for Christmas. My mother-in-law and my wife were cleaning up after dinner, and I was kind of kicking on the couch. And if you were, a fly on the wall, you'd think this guy's living the dream. I mean, he's made this great money. He's got kids playing Legos in the bedroom. His, wife and mother-in-law are cleaning up. Once the kids go to sleep, he'll put together the Santa gifts. I don't know if that's living the dream, but but the process was quite good to me at that point. In 2006, had proven that I put my mind to something, I can do it as long as I keep with those kind of daily disciplines. And yet inside, I was a wreck. I was in an inferno of emotion, and I literally was staring at my phone trying to will it to ring. I wanted one more deal. That was my desire, was just one more deal. I had a starch shirt in the car. I was ready to throw it on, go out on Christmas Eve and write up one more offer and do 121 deals that year, even though my goal, by the way, was 120. And so at any rate, the phone wasn't ringing, and I asked my wife how late she thought Costco was open, and she said, well, I don't know, it's Christmas Eve, probably 9 o'clock. It was about 8:30, so I ran on down there. I screeched through the threshold of Costco, and they kind of clicked me in right before the clock struck 9, and I bought a TV and a DVD. And ran home. And a stack of movies. And I ran home and plugged it in. My wife said, "What are you doing? I thought we weren't going to have TVs here at our lake house." I said, "We weren't, but I got to get my mind off the fact that my phone's not ringing." And at that, now that I say that, I think, man, that was. It's Christmas Eve, right? But I needed to get my mind off. And the first thing I did was threw in a movie called World Trade Center. I don't know if you ever saw World Trade Center with Nicolas Cage. It's about 911 and people literally jumping out of the World Trade Center because they're on fire. It's almost like a documentary type Nicolas Cage movie. And I threw it in, and I put a kid under each arm, and I was ready to watch this kind of gory movie. And my wife said, "Well, we're not watching that. We're not watching people jumping out of, windows on Christmas Eve. Where's the Chevy Chase movies, right?" And I said, "I just need to get my mind off the fact that my phone won't ring." And at any rate, I didn't get to watch the movie, and Christmas Eve happened. We had a great time, but I at that point, I realized I kind of lost myself in my success. What I realized is that as we become successful, sometimes we assign our identity to that success, and we kind of lose ourselves. So we are not known for us. We're known for, our achievements. And our achievements, although valiant, great things, and certainly pay the bills and make us feel like we're a productive citizen and certainly a master of our trade, it doesn't actually define us. And yet we allow it to if we're not careful. And in 2007, I hired a coach. And one of the very first things that my coach and I did was kind of work through all that. And that was really my defining moment of purpose and kind of reevaluating. Of course, the market crashed in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. The market helped me redefine where my values, my purpose came from, because I wasn't doing the deals that I had done. Although, it was the beginning, if you will, the genesis of a reevaluation of purpose.
Yeah, no, I love it, man, because we get so driven, and it's so, and I meet so many entrepreneurs, and I struggle with this all the time too, of being able to, like you just said, just get my mind off. And if I still, that's why I love movies still this day. Cause it's like unless I decide to go drink alcohol, which I hate doing, because then it makes me less ambitious and suck the next day. But it's like, man, it is so hard to shut off that mind and do those things. So, all right. So you kind of have that realization, you get your coach, you start redefining your purpose. What leads you into not continuing to create success as just growing your own real estate career? I know now you're You're a trainer, you're a coach, you're an author.
Yeah.
How do those other things transpire?
Well, it's a good question because it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I remember my office coworkers, the associates in my office that I'd hang out with, go to happy hour or go to whatever teriyaki or whatever we did on a daily basis. They would say, is this the new James? Because starting in 2007, I was starting to really work on, showing up more fully. So I had this killer relationship with my clients. I mean, my clients trusted me like no one. I mean, we were buddies by the time we were done with the transaction. And I would adopt a lot of them as best friends, depending on how the relationships went. Not all of them, of course. And yet my coworkers didn't even hardly know me. I mean, I'd walk in with blinders on, just trying to do the next transaction. I looked at going in the office as a necessary evil. And to be quite honest with you, I view going in the office now, and I'm still a practicing realtor, but I look at going into the office now as pretty much not working. But one of the things that I realized is that my relationships had really suffered at the cost, if you will, of growing my business to, whatever I put my mind to. And so I hired this coach and I said, you'd think I would have learned after having that Christmas Eve, but I said to my coach, by the way, my coach and I never met in person. It was always over with a phone. In fact, even today, even though she so inspired me that she shows up a lot in my most recent book, I never have met her ever in person. I'd love to give her a copy of this book, but I've never been able to track down where she actually is in the world. And I mention her often, but I hired the coach and I said, your job is to help me make another $300,000 a year. She goes, well, James, I can do that. But first, I've got a quick question for you. Do you play Legos with your kids? I said, you know what? It's weird that you asked that, but when I get still, when I get down on my knees and I really, really try to focus on what really matters, like time with my children, I can't do it. I mean, the second that I slow down, I start thinking of all the stuff that I need to be doing, the phone calls I forgot to make, the inspections, the escrows or whatever, right? And it's so massively involved in pretty much how important I am, if you will, in the real estate community, that I can't slow down enough to play Legos with my kids. She said, James, I tell you what, I can totally I can help you make your 300 extra in yearly GCI, but only when you can play Legos with your children and enjoy it. Huge moment for me. Didn't exactly know how to do that, but I began to start working on the more holistic approach to being alive. Not just so one-dimensional, transaction-related, the next deal, only as good as the next deal kind of mentality, but showing fully up, being able to wear one hat in all areas of my life rather than having, business James, friend James, dad James, real estate James, other business James, new ventures James, whatever. And just kind of being a whole person, which I hadn't really worked on. And that's the thing, that we begin to go invisible when we have too much success. And then if we're not careful, we're so massively seduced by our previous success that all we try to do the rest of our life, if we're not careful, is try to relive it. Try to just replicate it. But your past is over. I mean, that's the sweet part, is your past is over. You had great success. Thank goodness you had it, because it'll propel you into your future, but you're living your life as if you're trying to replicate the past and maybe replicate the past, but do a little bit better than the past always. That's kind of living in lack, if you will. So the biggest learning lesson for me ultimately was the concept that the more I become myself, the more I become wholly myself, the more money I make and the more happy I am. And I mean, Tony Robbins put it best when he said, success without fulfillment is failure. And that's really, really, whenever I have success, but I don't build fulfillment into my business plan, and that's really for your listeners, And I'll talk to you a little bit about how I did that, but we're big kids. We know how to build fulfillment into our business plans. We just didn't make it a priority. Instead, we made it a priority the transaction aspects, right? But then we didn't throw in that, oh, and how am I going to be fulfilled at the end of this? And then we wonder why we're not fulfilled, because we never even planned for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. No, love it, man. And then obviously the book comes from you going through this journey and creating success with this journey. So, and I love it, dude, because it's the definition of success, at least for me, isn't to have a massive bank account, but then have neglected my health to build it, not really know my wife, not really know my kids, not create those memories and have all these regrets. And if we get so focused on this one thing, that's easy to have happen to all of us. I think we've all been there, and a lot of us are still there. And we all know those people that have went those paths. So kind of walk us through your personal journey, man. I mean, how did you, because when you ask that, like when you ask people, because happiness doesn't equate to fulfillment. Like there's things that can make me instantly happy, but don't make me fulfilled. So when you ask people at a deep level, what truly makes you fulfilled, a lot of people don't even know how to answer that. So how do you start that fulfillment process and then working that into your business plan, having success with that person?
I mean, it's interesting you asked that because, I've been spending a lot of time on this, as you can imagine. And so by you asking that, it forces me to say, whoa, not everyone has spent tons of time saying, what does it mean to truly be alive, truly be fulfilled, and still get to do the things I love? But it really is a moving target for everyone. But one thing I can tell you is it's not something that you will arrive at. You're already there. So as you're already in a spot, you already have your platform, you already are everything you need to be completely fulfilled while doing what you love. And I mean, we wouldn't be doing real estate if we didn't love it. I'll tell you. I mean, most people would just, drop out. Well, most people I know do drop out if they don't love it. Yeah. So let's just assume I'm talking to high achieved, highly successful individuals that absolutely love what they do, but frankly, they're totally addicted to the adrenaline, which, by the way, adrenaline, total drug. You are literally pumping it into your body. Every day you do a deal, right? And then, just like the casino gambler, they've done studies that said the drugs that if you will, the hormones released in your body are the same hormones that are released when you're losing as when you're winning. So, I remember working with a builder, and whenever the market slowed down, he'd just go out and buy because he just needed the drug. I mean, he needed adrenaline whether he was buying or selling. But as we become more of ourselves, as we become more genuine, and as we become more curious, if you will, of the unlived life that we have yet to live, and as we look at that as kind of, the stakes are really high, like, what if I don't live my unlived life? Like, you've heard that quote, like, it's not the things that we have done in life, it's the things that we haven't done that we'll regret the most. It's like really the unlived life aspect, and making sure that we're, I guess, visiting that, and then maybe even implementing it into our practice, into our business planning. And so my book, Re-Succeed, what I did is I created an evening ritual that takes about 5 minutes that allows you to slow down enough as a successful, highly achieved individual. And obviously I'm thinking of myself in the real estate space, so that's why this works for us. But it would work for anyone in any industry. And really stop trying to find all the answers, because that's what successful people do, right? All we want to do is just find the right answers, but instead start asking great questions. So for 5 minutes every evening after we kind of ramp down for sleep, so actually working on setting ourselves up for a restful sleep, I ask 3 great questions, if you will. I ask questions that I don't know the answer to right before I go to sleep. And what happens is it's actually science. So Joshua, you've probably slept on a big decision, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So this is like the sleep on it thing, but I'm doing it 7 days a week. And the people that engage with what it's called the 5-minute epic evening ritual is really just grab a 3x5 card and write down these 3 questions about your unlived life, about questions that you don't have the answer to. And interestingly, the first thing you'll want to do is answer them, like literally that night while you're writing them down, because you're a successful high achiever. Successful high achievers don't want to sit around and wait for the answer. We just want to freaking immediately start trying to answer them, right? So what I do is I resist the desire right before I go to sleep of finding the answer. I write them down on a 3x5 card, and then every morning I wake up and I revisit what I wrote down. And it's amazing that as you do this, how the questions come to you in abundance. And I actually keep all my questions, and then I revisit them. So I know we're on your podcast, but here's showing you here. I've got all these cards that I've been writing down 3 great questions on, and then I go back every month and I revisit them. So so the 5-minute epic evening ritual forces us to become curious or interested in our life rather than interesting for once. So we're curious, we're interested in what we haven't yet experienced. And then we ask great questions, especially those that we don't have the answers to, and open ourselves up to the unlived life.
So then when it comes to these 3 questions, I mean, do they have to be specific to us? And I mean, like, what would be some examples, like, of my unlived life? Like, what would it be like to go, if I've always wanted to go jump out of a helicopter to go snowboarding? Like, would that be a question of give us some examples of that unlived life, and do they need to pertain just to you?
Well, I guess, a really basic one would be the question of working out. A lot of us, especially high achieved individuals, might not get to the gym like we'd like to. So the kind of the old way to do it is you write down on your to-do list, go to the gym 4 times a week. But guess what that is? That's like you being your own boss. But the thing is, we don't like having bosses, right? We're realtors, right? So we don't even hardly like having bosses for clients, right? That's why we love that we get a new client with every buyer or seller, right? So it's like we start fresh, right? So, but when we bully ourselves into, go to the gym tomorrow morning, right? What's the first thing we do? We don't, right? We don't get a gym. I mean, we're like, I don't think so. We're actually going to turn on ourselves and our goals. So instead, so the tendency is, well, let's just ask that in a question format. No, that's not re-succeeding. That's not the 5-minute epic evening ritual. It's not about asking rephrasing, if you will, your to-do list item as a question, but instead asking it curiously. Like, what I realized is that why I wanted to go to the gym ultimately, and this was a question, it says, what is so important? Why is it so important for me that I go to the gym, right? And then the answer arrived, which was because it gives you energy, right? Like vitality, like your tolerance is better. You think clearly. When you're running on the treadmill, you have some of the most amazing breakthroughs, to the point where you stand on the rails to the right and left and write down your notes on your Apple iPhone. You have crazy breakthroughs when you work out, right? And energy and vitality comes from this workout, right? So that was the answer. So then the question became, what can I do tomorrow? So make it really definable and actionable, right? To increase my energy, vitality, and breakthroughs. And then, so then all of a sudden, well, it's working out, right? And not maybe 10 minutes initially, right? Maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe an hour and 15. I don't know everyone has a different definition, but the shift changed because I realized that the question was about energy, not about responsibility with a shower at the end. Right. So with the book writing, I was asking the wrong question. So by asking wrong questions, you get clarity. So I said, when am I going to have enough time to finish my book? Okay, wrong question. Never. I'm a realtor, dude. I like to keep massively busy, right? I want to be jumping around from a million different things, sliding into home plate after happy hour every single night. right? So I changed the question from when am I going to have enough time to how could I be so inspired by things that happen in my life that I can do nothing but sit down and write another chapter. So then all of a sudden what I'm doing is I'm looking for the so inspired moments in my day, right? That it's like, I just got to find a Wi-Fi connection. I got to write this down, right? So, it was just, it's rephrasing and kind of defining or re-succeeding in a way how you approach yourself, because our language to ourself, and language is one of the chapters in my book, we're brutal. We are absolutely brutal on it. And you know what? My coach said fear is great initially. I mean, you know this. We use fear to grow our business, right? Like, I don't want to, whatever it is you don't want, right? We use that as a motivation. But over time, fear becomes a negative fuel. So fear starts to take from you and strip from you, and it starts to actually, the things that you're trying to avoid actually come to you. Right? That's the negative fuel aspects of fear. But initially, you got to use that kind of, well, shoot, if I don't go and get off my butt and sell some houses, I'm going to have to tell the very people that I told I'm in real estate, like the postcards you send out to everyone saying, hey, I'm a realtor. I'm going to have to tell all those same people, yeah, never mind that, I'm at Home Depot now. So at any rate, asking great questions, resisting the need to answer them initially, and then listening. And the science of that is you tap into your creative mind, your creative subconscious, and your creative subconscious operates completely different than your mind when it's awake. I mean, you come up with these massive, interesting, creative, totally different answers than you would normally in your day. Your daytime thinking and reasoning is all about it's all about your past performance and all the pieces of the pie that you already possess. Whereas your nighttime dreaming reasoning, those go to the far-reaching corners of your mind, and they start to piece things together that you didn't even know pieced together. And then also access to the miraculous. So really that creator of the universe aspect that you open up to. So you're opening up to, and depending on where everyone's faith is, but you do ultimately open yourself up to not being the man for once, right? You surrender to not having all the answers, and because you let go of having all the answers, you start to receive them.
Yep. Love it. So, on your bio, there was a series of some questions that you provided. And usually when I get the bios, like I don't read the questions that were in there because it's kind of a free flow conversation. Okay. But some of your questions, man, just really, really intrigue me because it's so unconventional from how we as entrepreneurs think. So some of these, man, I really want to go through and really want to ask because, again, it is just opposite of how we've been conditioned. So one of them that you had on there, one of your talking points I'm really intrigued in is about why you should throw away your to-do list. Oh, yeah. Again, I mean, us as entrepreneurs, man, we got those to-do lists, right?
Hey, so, you know what? Because I'm a big kid. Here's the deal. The way this 5-minute epic evening ritual and the 3x5 card thing, the 3 questions happen, is that I got upstairs and every night before I went to sleep, I'd just write down everything on a yellow pad that I need to pull off tomorrow. Right. I go, because you're probably like me. I use my calendar as like a task list too. So like, I'll put in like an hour-long thing, which is not meeting anyone, right? But it's like, do this, right? Yep. And you like slap it in at 10 a.m. and that's kind of free flowing, but you'll delete the item once you get it done. Right. Well, I would take all those, group them together with all the things I knew I needed to accomplish, as well as preparation for meetings or whatnot, into a yellow pad next to my bed before I went to sleep. Well, one night I got up there, my yellow pad wasn't there, but there was a stack of 3x5 cards that my kids had left, and blank ones that my kids had left up there. They had obviously been using 3x5 cards to study for a spelling exam, and they left some blank ones on my nightstand. And I thought, wouldn't that be sweet if I could like get everything I need to accomplish on a 3x5 card? And then I thought, wouldn't it be sweet if it wasn't a to-do list? And then I realized you know what? This to-do list has really become a to-remember list. I mean, it's like 80 items that I get to maybe 3 of. And then if I get to none of them, I was even known to delete items from my 80-item to-do list just so I felt like I got something done. But I didn't get anything done. I just got rid of some crap that I didn't want anymore, right? I need to create a little white space, right? Or maybe I'll rewrite it and like omit the ones that, and then go from 80 to 70, but I omitted the ones. And so, hey, I got rid of 10 items, right? And all you did is rewrite your to-do list. And then I realized, so to-do list became to remember list because there was too much stuff. And the fact is, I'm a big kid. I'm going to do whatever I want these days and only what I want. And I realized if I threw this thing away, if I literally threw away this thing, would I not do any of it, or would I finally not use it as a crutch and then just start doing some stuff? So I just said, you know what, all this stuff on this list, I mean, there's stuff on the list like, you know, paint the hallway. I mean, you don't need it on your to-do list. You know you're not doing it. If the second by the way, the second, you delete paint the hallway or you throw away your to-do list and you walk through the hallway, you go, got to hire that guy. You just, you're on the phone, you're like, call Eduardo and tell him to come over and paint the hallway, right? Like you just get it done because you no longer have the crutch of this list. And instead of having a list at all, I decide, hey, I've got, I know what I got to pull off, but the one thing I'd love to do is open myself up to the things I'm not even thinking of. And that 80-item list was holding me back from that. So I got rid of my list altogether and said, hey, James is a big kid. James will do what James wants to do, and he won't do the things that he won't do, right? I don't have a list anymore. I mean, I know there's people listening right now that are like, wow, delete. But it's a huge liberation. Even if you just do it for like 30 days, ask 3 great questions before you go to sleep, skip the list for 30 days, put your list in a safe for 30 days, hand it to your significant other or spouse and say, take care of this list, keep it under your pillow, give me 30 days without it. You will be amazed what comes when you open yourself up to asking great questions and then just actually empowering yourself and saying, I'm a big kid. I'll do what I need to do. And I know that. If I do have the list, I won't. But if I don't have the list, I do.
Yep. Love it. Another thing that you talked about in the questions is about why so many high achievers are so unhappy. And I know we kind of hit on this before, but this kind of ties into another one of your questions is like how do you go out there and find that purpose, and why is it so important? And I could be wrong here, but my guess is so many are so unhappy because they're taking all this massive action and they don't necessarily maybe know why, or they haven't got clarity on that purpose. And do you find that to be true of why so many high achievers are so unhappy?
It comes down to motivation. I mean, I end up meeting a lot of high achievers that want to be high achievers to prove something to someone, whether it's a parent or, whether it's a best friend, or whether it's their spouse, or whether it's just to themselves. And a chapter in my book, but one real huge moment for me was realizing that a lot of times we live a life of success and achievement based on trying to earn our way in. So it's as if we don't have it, if you will. And someday, if we work hard enough and are successful and achieved enough, then one day we'll get that membership card in to the club of enoughness. And what I realized is that I'd been caught in that a little bit, that it's almost like I'm living a life of not enoughness, but hopefully someday I will be enough. But I realized, what if I switch this up? Because I think I'm all like, if you really asked me, James, are you enough? Like, do you have what it takes, or are you still trying to earn your way in? I would say, yeah, I'm enough. Then the next question would be, then why don't you just act like it? Why don't you actually believe it, right? Don't just try to, make it look like it, but actually believe it. And so I started this process of realizing that instead of trying to earn the way in by achievement and success, I'm going to go about it differently. And I'm going to be successful and highly achieved as an already enough person. What was interesting about showing up already enough, right, is that I no longer live with deficit. I show up with my clients. I show up at my office already enough. Like everything is already there for me. I'm already in my place. I already have my platform for contribution and purpose, right? And from that standpoint, I'm going to be highly successful, highly achieved. And it was just, I know it might sound a little woo-woo, but it's just amazing how much living as if we don't have enough this or that holds us back from being who we really are. And that's the success trap, is trying to be successful to become enough when you already are. And here's why you already are. You were enough the moment you had your first cry in the hospital room, right? You're enough because you're here, and no one can take that from you. I'm not saying you're enough because you're perfect, because you're not, right? I'm saying you're enough because despite you, you're here and you're wonderfully made. And from that standpoint, now fully show up in your business, fully show up with your family, fully show up with your friends. And metaphorically, if you will, play Legos with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Do you think, or in your experience, when you're reflecting on your experience, do you think that part of that understanding that you are enough is, because it's like, okay, when we're kids, we're conditioned to, it's all about pleasing our parents. Yeah. Then it becomes about pleasing that coach or that karate teacher, and then your teachers, and and then we just carry that throughout life, man. You pick this career to please your parents, and then eventually it becomes about pleasing society, pleasing your spouse, and we never really identify, well, what do I want? Yeah. And it creates this internal just massive misery because we're living our whole life to impress others, and do you think that is tied to realizing that you're enough, of just being able to identify those and create your own goals for you instead of living your life of these achievements for everybody else other than yourself?
Everyone will have their own path, but it's really asking yourself the enoughness question. Like, I used to go to these large conferences. I don't know if you like going to conferences, but I still don't like going to them, but I realized when I diagnosed it, part of it is that I can't sit still. I'll be the guy in the back of the room against the wall real quick. Right. And then, I don't want to take notes, or, I just want to get like the one or two items out of it and then bail. But what I realized is there was a little deeper insidious thing going on. And that is that when I went to conferences, I didn't know how I stacked up with that many people. Like, where do I fit in this? Right? Am I enough to be in this group or that group? Right? Or, maybe I felt like, well, I should be on that stage, but I'm not on that stage, or whatever. Right? And what I realized was this was just one big, massive nightmare of not enoughness. So then the next conference, I went to this, we go to conferences, right, in our business. And I went to this conference. I said, James, what if you just, because you have like all this stuff to provide and value to give, right? What if you showed up like 100% enough? Like, and in your handshaking and, relationship building, networking, what if you showed up completely enough rather than trying to prove you're enough or figure out if you're enough, right? And that was this process that I went through. And then I took that idea, that just little idea of being at a conference, and started looking at that in every area of my life, right? And starting to, even honestly with children, like, why am I not wanting to sit down or get on the floor and play Legos, right? Not enough, right? Like, I've set up these constraints saying, I will do it when. I have a buddy that says, James, I because for a while there when the market crashed, I didn't have anything else to do. So I went down and I worked at this place where they fed the homeless. Probably because I was trying to be enough. But while I was feeding the homeless, I started inviting my friends. And one friend said, James, I'm not going to feed the homeless until I've got all my ducks in a row. Money in the savings account, blah, 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 right? And it's, no, in your brokenness, you are already enough, right? Like, you so could feed the homeless and have a story, right, with these people by just showing up today, right, rather than waiting for someday. So the big question around happiness or unhappiness, or really, it's not finding purpose, but being open to the purpose that's already right before you, which starts with you, that you're already enough, that you already have so much to contribute, that you've held yourself back from because you thought that you had to earn your way in.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through that, and have went through that many times in my life. And just like you, I'm huge on hiring coaches, and I had and still have her today as my personal coach, that helped me go through that, where it was like, cause I would feel like, hey, I'm not operating or a good enough husband, a good enough father, good enough at this. And I always carried around this internal guilt. And she's like, look, there's a difference between you're taking action, but you're not taking inspired action, because that guilt is deterring you from being at your best self. So you gotta again, learn that you are enough. That doesn't mean that you're not trying to be better and improve, but you're enough in this moment. And the fact that you're just trying to level up, proves that. And it allows you to take that much more inspired action. And, I think if people can truly grasp that, they can see the power of it. And obviously you're living, breathing proof that this stuff is so damn powerful.
Yeah, I just kind of get out of your way. You're already enough. And in that enoughness, how are you going to show up different?
Yep. So then, you talked about the importance of knowing what you want and telling others. And a lot of people struggle with clarity of getting purpose, finding their purpose, finding what they want. And they can, just that alone, trying to seek what you want, can create suffering for a lot of people in its own right, right? So how have you had success of finding what you want? And then what is that importance of telling others?
Well, sometimes I'll ask a friend, hey, where do you want to go on vacation this year? And they'll answer with what they don't want to do. They'll say, well, I don't want it to be cold, right? Or, well, I don't want to, whatever. They have like these rules of things they don't want. And then I say, no, I ask you where you do want to go, right? And then I realize that we're so good at telling everyone what we don't want. In fact, we actually complain about the things that we do have in a way like we don't want them, right? Like I went back to Thailand with our church a few years back, and I realized they don't complain about what they have, right? And they have hardly anything, right? And then I get back to the U.S. and all we do is talk. We tell everyone how pissed we are that we have all this, that we have whatever, right? Just have in general. And one of my biggest complaints in real estate was, why do I only have exactly what I need? I was literally complaining that all my needs were met, but not more. And it's like, James, did you hear yourself? You are literally complaining that you're totally handled, right? On every level. You should be pinching yourself, right? Instead, you're complaining about, you're acting as if what you want is a bad thing. So what I realized is that as a real estate agent and as a human in general, we need to get better at clearly defining what we want, because I believe that once we know what we want clearly, and I call it full color thinking in my book, but once we create an image of exactly what we want in our mind, right, we can do nothing but move towards it. That's not witchcraft. That's just reality. If I know I want, and I can picture every little detail of it, then I do nothing but move towards that, because it's all I know. It's all I can move towards, right? If it's a gray kind of vague picture, then there's a lot of other things I can move towards as well. And I'll tend to move towards the thing that has the most vivid picture. It's kind of like, moving towards what it would look like to not fall into bankruptcy and moving towards what it would look like to fall into bankruptcy. Which one is more vivid? That's one you're going to go towards, right? So I spend a lot of time working with the people that I coach and consult on the idea of just becoming so massively clear on what you want that you can do nothing but move towards it. And then also tell others what you want. So, a real estate example is that I used to, in the crash years, I didn't want listings because they didn't sell. That if I listed something, it might not even sell. And sometimes I was, hoping it sold, because if it did sell, then the seller would then go buy something. So there was two deals kind of sitting there for me, and then it would all fall flat on its face during the hard times in real estate. And so I decided I need to get really, really clear with everyone I know about what I want, which is a buyer that's fully approved, that doesn't need to sell, but has to buy. And then I need to fully explain to everyone in the world exactly what I'm looking for. Why am I looking for a buyer? Because that has to buy, because then they'll buy, right? I want them to be approved, because anymore these days in the lending world, you've got to make sure you have that, but I don't want them to have to be contingent on selling their home. And then the next week I started getting referrals from the people I talked to because they finally knew what I was looking for. Right. So from a business perspective, becoming massively clear on what you want and then telling others. And I mean, that's a little bit about why we're meeting. You know, whenever I do a podcast, I want to do more podcasts with more people that are like-minded. So when I finished with Matt Johnson, you know, I told Matt exactly what I was looking to do more of, right? And then your name immediately came up as the person that I should be talking to, right? So know what I want, tell others what I want, and then I get what I want. Clear picture, move towards it.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. You know, and we've seen the power, and a lot of the greats, like, you know, it makes me think of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book of talking about the power of visualization and manifestation. And I mean, there's just too much proof for others to say, oh, that stuff's just woo-woo, doesn't work, you know, right? I mean, it totally works. So what would you say, though, you know, for those that, I mean, do you ever find yourself, once you get to the point where, okay, I am enough, and you've got that internal fulfillment, because some people may be like, well, dude, I've got these big goals that I want to hit, and if I get to that point in my life where I'm enough, like they might have a fear of losing their ambition and losing their drive. They might feel that not enough is what drives them and what inspires them. How do you stay driven and not accepting settling or mediocrity, but at the same time still having that fulfillment?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of the first thought that comes to my mind is baby steps, because you're right, the fear-based, you know, the death of a salesman, only as good as your next transaction approach. You know, I used to take any and all money I had and go and buy more investment properties, because the last thing I wanted was to have any cash in the bank. That'd be like a fuse. I'd have a long fuse, so I wouldn't have to hustle, right? And then, you know, I could just kick it, right, for the summer or whatever, right? So I would just go and spend all my money somewhere, put it somewhere. One time I opened up a bank account like in this little obscure bank in the middle of nowhere that I'd have to drive 2 hours to get to, right? And kept money over there so that I couldn't access it and so that I didn't know it existed. So this is the, you know, scarcity approach, if you will, and not allowing yourself to celebrate is what we're talking about. So one of the chapters of my book is about the power of celebration, and one of the quotes that I won't get this perfect, but one of the quotes that I mentioned was the idea that we're so fearful of jumping up that when we land, the ground below will be missing. And that's the fear of celebration. And so that I say business plan it all. Right. So if you're concerned about having fulfillment and losing your edge, right, then just business plan it. So there's moments in your day or week or months when you literally plan to celebrate. Right. I mean, this could be as simple as just adding in like a celebration evening with your team. Right. Or, you know, a special night with your family. Just little things along the way that allow you to make sure that you're still alive on this deal, that you're not so fixated on the end goal that you forget to live. Because here's the deal. We like to keep our feet to the fire, our hands to the plow. But if we do, the burnout is so great in this industry, you just will automatically do less and less over time. So you have to build in some protection there. And one of the ways to do that is fulfillment. And if you can't think of fulfillment outside of work, then think of fulfillment inside work and add it to your business plan. Literally adding the art, if you will, of being fulfilled as a major component of the success of your overall business. And then that way it's not looked at as, man, I'm going to lose my edge if I let off the plow. You're keeping your hand on the plow just to make sure you're fulfilled too.
Yeah. Yep, love it. And then, like, I mean, at different stages of our life, and I know one of the questions that you posed is, like, how do you know when it's time that you need to re-succeed? And I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine recently that was like, man, when I first got into real estate, she was pregnant. She found she was pregnant. She's like, I would go door knock 200 doors a day because I knew I had this, soon to be baby that I had to create opportunities for and feed. Now her kids are older and she's like, man, I cannot find myself the drive to go out there and now door knock because that same purpose that she had at that point now is self-sufficient.
Yes.
So, kind of walk us through that. How do you know it's time to succeed? And then how do you go through that process?
Well, it really is that diminishing return. So you're right. I mean, we get in this business. I mean, I go from selling nothing to selling 2, selling nothing to selling 10. You have these huge kind of moments of movement and projection in your business. And that's all very exciting. And it gives us a lot of that kind of the rush that we enjoy. And, I always say, if you want to raise, sell another house. So there's that, simplicity aspect of real estate. Like, gosh, I mean, if I work with 40 people this year, buyers and sellers, I'll do this. I'll work with 30, I'll do this. I mean, it's just up to me, right? It's like, it's all up to me if I show up or not. But your motivation changes. So, I mean, your client and friend that you mentioned, where it's just a different day today, that's an example of the fact that, what fulfilled you back then doesn't fulfill you today. And if you try to, this is an example where it's like, well, maybe I just need to get back at, door knocking. I mean, I used to go door knocking and I would get the door slammed in my face. And for some reason, I kind of got off on that. Like, I made this deal that if I had the door slammed in my face 20 times, then I could go home and have dinner with my family. So I was looking to have the door slammed in my face 20 times. And every time it happened, I go, yes, because I was like that much closer to being able to go home. Right. And like sometimes I couldn't get home early in the evening because I didn't have 20 doors slammed in my face. Right. Which is kind of twisted, but it kept me going. That was like massive motivation. And I felt like I was doing the thing, that's the thing in our business. It's like doing the things that no one else wants to do. Right. I mean, Greg McDaniel, for example, live streams. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's absolutely hilarious. He live streams his cold calling. I mean, it's genius. I mean, it's addictive. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I watch this stuff. I drive a lot for my work, and I watch hours of Greg McDaniel live streaming his cold calls because it's absolutely fascinating to watch the train wreck happen and then watch him handle the objections. And it reminds me of my early on days in real estate and how enjoyable it was to be the guy doing something that no one else wanted to do. But for the person you are mentioning, it's like, what does it mean today? What's today? What's the unlived life, right? Today, and that's the asking questions thing. Because if we just go and try to replicate our success and how we did it in our past, then it's like you've heard the definition of insanity, right? So, but that even has to do with success, right? If you try to replicate your past experience, hoping it'll provide you with the same juice that it did in the past today, it's not going to. So that's why we need to ask questions about the things that we don't know and open ourselves up to the answers. That would be a prime question. It's like, what's going to give me the energy and what's going to help me feel fully alive in this business today that's different than yesterday, for your friend and client. So.
Yeah, powerful stuff. I love it. So, where's the best place, James, to go? I mean, first off, what's the name of the book? Where's the best place to go get it? And then from there, I know that you do a lot of training. You talked about doing coaching. Where's the best place if people also want to reach out to you, learn more about you, to be able to do that?
Well, the very best is James Colburn, COL, B as in boy, URN.net. So 3 free chapters of the book there, a link to Amazon to get the book either on audio, Kindle, and or paperback, as well as what I call the Fast Launch Package, which is a PDF of the exact 5-minute epic evening ritual routine plus some example questions. There's a coaching section in that as well. So yeah, and there's multiple ways to get a hold of me. I'd send you to Amazon, but if I send you to jamescolburn.net, you just get more. And then you can link off to Amazon.
Yep.
And the name of the book is Re-Succeed. So R-E, and then Succeed, SUCCEED.
Yep, love it, man. So knowing everything you know now today, if you, for going through all this whole entire journey, if you could revisit yourself, like the first day you got your real estate license, and you could go back and give yourself 2 pieces of advice, knowing everything you know now today, that you feel would have just fast forwarded your overall success in every aspect of your life, what do you feel those 2 pieces of advice would be?
Well, I'd always, I mentioned it in the book, but I'd say you want to take the rocking chair test probably once a year. And I mean, literally imagine yourself sitting on the covered porch of your home in your retirement years, sitting on your rocking chair that you've either inherited or bought. And sitting there and allowing the day pass in your mind just for a moment, just the reflection aspects of imagining your future self and what will be most important for you that day on that covered porch. And by the way, it's not going to be door knocking. You know what I mean? You'll be amazed how a lot of that falls away. And the most important are those relationships and those connections and your own personal wholeness and ability to say, yeah, I totally showed up. Not just partially, not just business James showed up, but I totally showed up. Same hat, all people. So take the rocking chair test. Number 2, business plan fulfillment. Just every year say, okay, great. That's great. I love those goals, James, or whoever you are. but now what is the fulfillment piece and how can I add that in as a component? If you just business plan fulfillment, and by asking questions, by the way, 5 minutes every evening right before you go to sleep, as well as taking the rocking chair test, I think you'd be heads and tails above, and you would re-succeed.
Yep. Love it. Powerful stuff. So those watching and listening, you guys, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation truly is just the start to delusion. Information is not power. It's taking that information, taking action on it that creates that life that you know you want and deserve. So James shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you today. Take something that you learned, take immediate action on it. Below will be links to James's website where you can go check out his book. So wherever you're watching, listening to this, make sure to do that immediately. And James, man, I know how busy you are. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here. This has been a huge honor and a lot of fun, my friend.
Joshua, thank you. I'll come on anytime you want. I've got an hour for you any day of the week. You let me know.
Yeah, 100%, my friend. Well, we definitely will. And thank you guys again for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.